Yes, yes. So I'm starting to learn modern Greek, and I've been using Lingopie to do it. And I wanted to show you exactly what I'm doing. I've been using shadowing, the wonderful Alexander Arguelles technique, along with Lingopie's tools. And I just basically wanted to show what I do exactly because I think it's useful if you already have Lingopie. This video is not sponsored by Lingopie. They sponsor some videos over on the main channel. But, in just, a minute or so, it's not really much time to go into the depth I'd like to. So, I wanted to show it because this is like a really nice product, but you can probably apply these methods to things besides Lingopie. There are other apps out there, there are other tools, other ways to get input for modern Greek, which is again a new thing that Lingopie has. Lingopie has a lot of modern languages, Romance languages. It has at least Russian. What else does it have? It has Japanese and Korean and Chinese. These are all great, really great tools. So, I mean, you could apply this to any language. I really want to learn modern Greek because I know ancient Greek and I want to, well, there's a lot of different reasons why I want to learn modern Greek. I'll talk about that too. Um, One of them is that there is an advantage to having a connection with the language that descended from the ancient language that you're studying, if possible. There are a lot of different things you can get from that. I knew Italian, for example, before I started learning Latin, so I always have this sort of Italian, sort of centric minded way of looking at Latin. Those who learn Spanish first, a great example is my friend and colleague Chris Davis. We do the Ancient Greek through Latin videos over on Scorpio Martianos, and he knew Spanish fluently before he started learning Latin. And because of that, he has another Romance language which helps him get into the Latinity, which is very interesting. And one doesn't have to know that a priori. You don't have to know Romance language or modern Greek before you learn the ancient language. But I think learning it eventually confers a number of benefits. And I can go into those and the kind of things I've experienced by using, but it says really in relatively a short period of time using shadowing with the videos available on Lingopie. So I'm going to show you first exactly what I do with that. Let's look at the interface. All right, so here is the Lingopie interface. I'm on Greek. Here's all the languages it has: Italian, German, Portuguese, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Russian, Dutch, Turkish, and Polish. Boy, I'd love to learn every single one of those. And the ones I know, I'd like to learn them better. But for now, Modern Greek is my concentration, and they have a lot of things to choose from. And what I realized too, having used this before with other languages, is that this is just so perfect for what shadowing is. Now, I talked about shadowing in detail over on a video on the main channel. I think last year. In fact, I showed you how I use it with Lingopie a little bit, but I would rather show in better detail with Modern Greek because I don't know Modern Greek very well. I'm learning it. Other languages, I know. I showed you with Italian, other languages too that I haven't seriously studied, like Korean. I showed you a little bit of that. But I've been with some seriousness doing this shadowing plan that you see. So shadowing, what is shadowing? Shadowing is where you listen to the audio of something. Here, let's take this one, which is going to be the example. Let's see if I get this to
Η
play.
ζωή είναι ένα ταξίδι γεμάτο επιλογές, κάθε μία από τις οποίες διαμορφώνει την πορεία και το πεπρωμένο μας. Αλλά τι θα γινόταν αν το κλειδί για μια πιο ουσιαστική και ολοκληρωμένη ζωή...
So, we'll talk more about this program in a second. It's about its Stoic, insights. It's nice stuff. I like all the vocabulary it has. We'll talk more about why I chose this program in particular a little bit later. But I just wanted you to see what the interface has. So it has subtitles you can turn on or off for either of the languages. So you can have just the English or just the Greek. By the way, on mobile, it's just about as powerful as the desktop version, which I think is very impressive. I should be able to show you some of that later. First, though, I just wanted to show you. It's just easy to record me and my own audio and on the desktop version. I do frankly use this mostly on mobile, especially for the shadowing program that I have. But what it can do on desktop or mobile is have both the subtitles, and you see as soon as I bring the mouse over any of the words, was not. And kanome, so here's a word. So olokliromeni, olokliromeni. So how's it pronounced? I get an audio for it.
Ολοκληρωμένη.
Yeah, not too bad. It's just a digital sounding voice, but you get the basic pronunciation, and you can just, of course, re-listen to the line. Here, I can hit this play button here over on the transcript. This transcript feature is great. Kliromeni, where are you? Yes, that one, please.
και ολοκληρωμένη ζωή δεν ήταν σε ό,τι κάνουμε,
So you get to
αλλά
hear the
σε ό,τι
in the context of the sentence, as well as hearing the separate word. Now, the other thing too is if I click on the word over here in the script,
Ολοκληρωμένη.
it automatically adds it to the list of words that I'm learning, and I can test myself on later with the built-in flashcard system. It's really nice to have that. There is advantage to making your own flashcards in the where do I have that book? There it is. In Fluent Forever, Gabriel Weiner talks about how it is really useful to be able to make your own flashcards, your own things. I know this as a teacher, making my own pedagogical projects, whether they're slides or if I'm making, labels in ancient Greek, for example, of stuff in my house, that that's really helpful because I have to go through the effort. Like, wait, did I really write this correctly? Here's one of all the stuff with how to do the lamp, how to turn on the lamp, turn it off, and all those kinds of things. So I did all that stuff to make sure I would know it and I would be able to interact with it. All that stuff is useful. However, when it comes to spaced repetition, digital systems like, say, Anki, which is wonderful, and or the built-in flashcard system of Lingopie, they do that spaced repetition for you. Spaced repetition is where, because you don't need to review everything every single time. You only need to review the things that you don't know well, and the stuff you know well, you should probably review just before it passes out of memory. And the spaced repetition systems, like the one built in the Lingopie, these digital systems are able to do that for you, which is fantastic. So Lingopie has translation. You can turn off both lines of text, both the original Greek.
Και ολοκληρωμένη ζωή δεν ήταν σε ό,τι κάνουμε.
And you can have them turn back on. You can also, I like this auto pause feature where it will pause after the end of every subtitle. Let's see what that does.
Αλλά σε ό,τι επιλέγουμε να αποφύγουμε.
So it pauses there, and when I'm ready and I feel like I've absorbed the information, I hit play.
Οι ευφυείς άνθρωποι, αυτοί που πραγματικά ευδοκιμούν και βρίσκουν νόημα, έχουν κατακτήσει την τέχνη της διάκρισης.
See that it's great. It pauses. Well, again, I find it's very valuable. Also, you can change the speed. You could change it, as slow as this beginner speed. This will sound funny.
Γνωρίζοντας τι πρέπει να αποφεύγουν.
And that, frankly, is a lot easier for me to understand. All the way up to, I like how it calls advanced 0.9, but the full speed is that one. So, anyway, this is what it has available for all of its languages, all kinds of different videos. And what I realized right away was how useful this is for shadowing. So I chose the Stoic Insights program for a few different reasons. The main was that I like the voice. Now, as you can probably tell, I hypothesize that these videos, which it's a 10-episode series. Let's see if I can go to the main Stoic Insights page. I will test myself later, but not right now. Thank you. So I can go to the main Stoic Insights page here, go to the info. And so I've actually seen all these episodes at least once, but I've been re-watching them. It has 10 episodes. Each one is about 20, but it's more than 10 and less than 20 minutes. Or actually a little bit more than 20, a couple of them. But all of them are more than 10 minutes. And so altogether, it's certainly more than an hour of audio and video. So what I wanted to mention was probably now it's just from some YouTube channel. I'm not sure which one, because there are a number of similar YouTube channels like this. But those YouTube channels, even if they might have a transcript of the Greek text, maybe the Greek text that comes up automatically like YouTube can do, okay, maybe. Has it been curated? No. Has it gone through this filter where it can give you the translation of every single word? No. You see why Lingopie's interface just makes everything so much easier. So this is why I advocate this product. I don't advertise stuff on my website. Sponsor stuff for the channel unless it's something that I think is of real value. And this goes especially for Lingopie because I'm using this when I can every day. I have a very busy schedule, but I want to know ancient Greek so that I've never been to Greece, but I'd love to go and be able to have a conversation, understand most of what I could, read on signs, interact with people, and such. It's, of course, been enormously valuable to know ancient Greek well first, as I started studying like the very beginning of modern Greek 20 years ago, around the same time I started learning ancient Greek, but I never really continued with modern Greek except extremely sporadically, just here and there. Phonology was mostly the thing I looked at because I love the sound of modern Greek. I also love the sound of ancient Greek and all the dialects and variations, both modern and ancient. I think they're fascinating. Anyway, so the shadowing, what is shadowing? Let me talk about that. So shadowing is where if you have this audio, you speak along with the audio. I'll do that now. It'll sound weird and awkward. And I also want to turn off the text completely because when you do blind shadowing, it means you just listen, which means what I usually like to do is do Alexander Arguelles' technique, which is to walk outside, listening to the audio with the blind shadowing. I already did this for all 10 videos and listen to it and then just and shadow along with it. But this is what this looks like in practice.
Από την αναγνώριση των ταλέντων σας.
Okay. Oh no, I have to turn off this feature, right? The auto stop. Where do you go? So it's just because we want continuous audio.
Και πώς αυτά μπορούν να συμβάλλουν στους άλλους. Αυτό μπορεί να είναι το επάγγελμά σας, αλλά εκτείνεται και στις σχέσεις, την κοινωνική υπηρεσία ή τις δημιουργικές ενασχολήσεις. Θέτοντας στόχους ευθυγραμμισμένους με τον σκοπό σας, μπορείτε να κάνετε σταθερά βήματα προς ουσιαστικά επιτεύγματα.
Much harder without using headphones. Using headphones is way, way easier. I'm not using headphones now because I'm, I'm recording like this. But if I were shadowing here at the computer, I would use headphones. And outside, especially walking around, using, the phone, because although it's an extremely small amount of time, the sound moves really fast from the speakers to my ears. I notice I am able to do the shadowing much better if I have the sound right in my ears because it just reduces the amount of time travel. It's, this is very small, but it's a subtle thing. So what you see me doing in the shadowing technique is I'm repeating every sound I hear, trying to imitate the intonation as best I can. So this, you may have figured already, is why I've chosen these video series specifically because the best thing about it for me is the audio. I like the voice. The voice reminds me of Ioannis Stratakis' voice. He is a Greek man, and thus a speaker of modern Greek. And so when he speaks ancient Greek, he uses a classical Attic pronunciation. And his audiobooks are great and everything. And what is nice about it too is that this guy's voice reminds me of Ioannis Stratakis. And but what I want to do is kind of sound like this. I'm only 40. When I get to be 60 or older, maybe my voice will get lower and kind of more, it'll sound a little bit more like this older gentleman's voice on this audio recording or Ioannis Stratakis. But that's the thing. This is probably AI generated. Probably maybe the text could be. It's been curated by someone though, because these are certainly real. It's a real YouTube series. I'm pretty sure. I haven't found the exact videos, but I imagine they're on YouTube. I think just based on the format and the style. The images are AI generated, and the audio sounds good. It sounds pretty close to a real person. But I think from the regularity of it, it sounds like it may be AI generated as well. But I don't have a problem with that because if I knew language well, it might bother me. But since I don't, I want to isolate nuances away from what I want to do, I really just want to be able to produce speech. If I could speak like this, I would sound really good. I might sound a little robotic, but I could work with that in time and I could manipulate it. But getting the speed, the phonetics right, the intonation, and also in a tone of voice, and also a measure of voice which is close to my own voice, not quite as low or resonant as this voice. Let's hear it again. I'll do.
Δυναμική φύση της ζωής σημαίνει ότι η ευθυγράμμιση με τον σκοπό σας
με το σκοπό σας. I like the placement, the oral posture. And I found when I do this, when I try to shadow, I have to elevate. It's somewhat psychological. But there's a mechanism here of raising the sound and bringing it into the mask. That's a music singer term. Bring it so it's like more up in the cheeks, up below the cheekbones, and kind of think about it that way. And that helps to, as a as an idea, helps to manipulate my own muscles and speech organs to kind of focus the sound a little bit more forward, sound a little bit less where it normally sits in the English speaker's voice, which is a little bit lower, and more towards this more projected sound that it has, I think, in the most speakers of, say, the Mediterranean languages, like modern Greek and Italian. So that's very helpful. And it's also different from Italian, obviously, in a lot of ways, but there's an oral posture difference that I can perceive that's different in modern Greek speech from Italian, which is subtle. Um, but I want to sound, in modern Greek, I want to sound more like a native modern Greek speaker, not like Italian, not like, and I don't want my ancient Greek to sound overly Italian. Obviously, my ancient Greek pronunciation, since I usually prefer classical Attic pronunciation when I speak. Obviously, that's radically different in the basic sound of the consonants and vowels, and many other factors from the modern Greek language. But insofar as I am capable of using, like, whatever else is up for, hypothetical debate, certain features of intonation that aren't the basic pitch accent changes, but really how the pitch contours sound, all kinds of subtle things that I could only really get through imitation. I want to import into my ancient Greek. That is, I want to sound like a modern Greek speaker, native modern Greek speaker, who is able to do all of the ancient Greek phonology stuff perfectly, carrying carrying with him all of the stuff that the modern voice has. That's my goal. And so far, I've heard improvements in my own recordings. Improvement for my goal, which is to sound less Italian-like, less American English-like, and more modern Greek-like.
Είναι μια συνεχής διαδικασία. Αξιολογείτε τακτικά τις επιλογές σας για να εξασφαλίσετε ότι υποστηρίζουν τους στόχους σας και
But the tone of where his voice sits, his range, which is a bass, is maybe a little bit lower than mine, but it's pretty close to me. So anyway, I would like to sound like this guy, even though he's probably not real. It's probably AI, but based on a real man's voice, certainly. That's like 11, what's it called, 11 Labs, those different things out there which take samples of voices, and then you can create different kinds of audio profiles, voice profiles. It sounds like that's what the person who made these videos did. So blind shadowing is a shadow with no reference to the text. Now, I did that for all 10 videos, just walking around outside, and there's a lot of interesting reasons why that helps. You could do it sitting, standing, but being outside, putting yourself in motion with the headphones, I find really helpful to get into the rhythm of it. I don't know why, but it seems and Alexander Arguelles, he had a couple ideas why, but I'm not even sure he has a very cogent explanation of why it works so well, but it does. It certainly does for me. So the extras here are what I've actually done. So I've done blind shadowing. The next stage is shadow while reading the translation. So that would be to do this. So put on the English translation. Which video is this? This is episode 1. Okay, I'll just go back to the beginning here, because why not?
Κάθε στιγμή της ζωής μας διαμορφώνεται από τις αποφάσεις που καθορίζουν την πορεία μας. Και είναι αυτές οι επιλογές, όσο μικρές και αν φαίνονται, που υφαίνουν το πολύπλοκο υφαντό της ζωής μας. Σκεφτείτε μία πρόσφατη πρόκληση. Τι θεωρήσατε εμπόδιο ή ευκαιρία για να αναπτυχθείτε? Αυτή η ερώτηση δεν είναι απλώς ρητορική. Στη στοική φιλοσοφία είναι θεμελιώδης στο πώς αλληλεπιδρούμε με τον κόσμο.
Now, because there are the little gaps, that gives me a bit of a chance to hear, since it's, again, hard to hear, and talking over, when you have the headphones, talking over and saying the sounds is much easier, but without the headphones, it's much, much harder. So this is not a great demonstration of the praxis of shadowing of any of the stages, because of that small but noticeable difference in the time going from the speakers to my ears. But you get the idea. Now, yes, there's the Greek text over here. I wasn't looking at it just now. I was reading the English text. So what that does, now again, you start doing this, you'll feel super awkward. I don't think you will get used to this until you do maybe at least 20 minutes of it. So it'd be about 1 or 2 of these videos. You'll eventually get used to, like, okay, this is interesting. And then what will be interesting is you will feel like you are making progress in a way that's somewhat ineffable it won't be like I know I'm making progress, but you will feel like you're making progress. And I don't have a clear explanation for that other than you will have been uttering, especially with the headphones is much easier, but will have been uttering so many Greek phrases and words and sounds. And Alexander Arguelles, he takes, like those Asimil programs and similar things like that, and will cut out the spaces between them because he doesn't want spaces. He doesn't want to do, in shadowing, you don't do the listen and repeat. You can do that with something like Lingopie and really easily. I showed you some of the features that allow you to do that. But in shadowing, the idea is that you totally enter into the language's sounds. If you use an Asimil program, you'll get a variety of dialogues about, the conversational language. And that by the time you finish your shadowing, everything about shadowing, you will have mastered in quite a number of aspects the meanings and some fundamental sense of the grammar of your target language. So that's the promise, and I can speak from experience. It absolutely works, and it's very effective to do that and follow all these steps. Um, but why don't you just start from reading it? Like you could just use Lingopie probably the way it was originally intended. Although it works perfectly for shadowing. It works really, really well for shadowing. Um, which would just be to watch TV programs, and then you just have on the English and just hearing it, not using any output, and you could just and then you could have subtitles up, and then you could use the vocabulary builder tools here, which are these flashcards. Fabulous. All that is fantastic, and that's more of a comprehensible input based approach. CI, right? Comprehensible input, more Krashen based, not the production basis. I have found that comprehensible input is vital. We need to get as much as we possibly can. It's passive, which is convenient because we don't have to be actively involved. Shadowing is very active and intense and strange. It's weird to start doing this. You can see here, this is peculiar just from my my doing it now and today, and you won't sound very good or very perfect, but what you're doing is you're basically entering the language edifice, the structure or building of this language from like the side window. But I don't know how to extend that metaphor in a way that makes a lot of sense. But you're entering it from a different direction, which is extremely interesting since you're able to enter the language's edifice on the level of sound and of the production of sound as the first thing. It's like cutting in line in an interesting way. Um, and this is very much speaks again to my goals, which is I want to be able to speak modern Greek in the specific and sound more like a native modern Greek speaker than a native speaker of American English or Italian, which obviously will interfere always because I know Italian well and I speak it every day. And so I want to try to get away from all of that. And the way to do that is to listen and produce sounds. Now, again, being an ancient Greek speaker and reader, while I know the pronunciation of modern Greek, Σήμερα θα εξερευνήσουμε πως οι καθημερινές επιλογές, I can do that slowly and awkwardly. But what's useful with the shadowing technique is at the normal speed. I mean, if you want to slow it down, I guess you could, but I don't think you should for doing shadowing. At the original normal speed, the speed of speech, you repeat everything as you hear it, and you're not going to get every word. You'll maybe get like 1 or 2 or 3% of the words well done at first, and then maybe get 5, 10, 50. Then eventually get more and more, especially with headphones. It's a lot better. Let me do a little bit more.
Σήμερα θα εξερευνήσουμε πώς οι καθημερινές επιλογές δεν διαμορφώνουν μόνο τον χαρακτήρα μας.
See, when we do the normal slow studying, and we don't do any of this silly seeming but very useful shadowing that I'm demonstrating today, what we're slowing down the rhythm of speech into a slow rhythm that imitates our slow, in my case, native speaker of English rhythm, which is different from how a Greek would do things slowly. But we don't have this really slow kind of, Greek teacher teaching us a second language speech here. Also, that's not necessarily that's not how we want to talk. We don't want to talk slow and haltingly, even the way a modern Greek speaker would speak slowly and haltingly. We want to speak like this, right? So because when you speak a foreign language with the rhythm and intonation pretty close, you will go a long way to reducing comprehension difficulties in your listener, who is in this case, a modern Greek speaker. Because then that Greek speaker will feel where you're going, and even like if I said, well, if I said, so this is ton charichtira mas. If I said, I don't know, to charichtira ma, or something, to charichtira ma, and I forgot the sigma at the end, or I said, so mono, or something like that. To charichtira mas. This has a sound, right? It has a rhythm.
Τον χαρακτήρα μας.
Ton charichtira mas. Ton charichtira mas. I said ton charichtira ma. Or if I said to charichtiro mas or something with the wrong vowel at the end, because I did it with the rhythm and intonation, the native speaker would get all this information that for them is critical, and with one little vowel wrong, and they would totally follow what I'm saying. As foreigners, we see text, we see letters, and we concentrate on that. We try to perfect that, whereas we miss the forest for the trees. We get the individual trees, but the forest is this collective entity, how that is put together, how the sound and the rhythm of individual phrases works, we're not getting. We're not producing until we get more advanced. But the shadowing technique gets us to that first. And then, upon that, builds that wonderful foundation that with themeliodis, right? That was a word that I heard earlier. The foundational, themeliodis. It's a lovely word. You get to build the structure of the knowledge of your language. Because that's as foreigners, we often end up sounding not the right rhythm, not the right intonation. We can't conform the phrases together in a way that a native speaker would want to hear them for sure, and like we can mess up grammar in most and that's really not that big of a deal. Take people who learn say English, or since I'm obviously in the U.S., say English, and they learn only by ear. They might have an accent, they might have a lot of foreign things in the character, they might do a lot of odd grammar mistakes, but a lot of the rhythm and speed of their speech. Take the owner of a restaurant from whatever country, who has been living in the country for a while. They've ended up conforming their speech through learning by ear to the way the language sounds, the way that native speakers say it, while getting a lot of the grammar wrong, or maybe some other features wrong. But because the rhythm is there, it's easy to have a conversation with them, and it's easy for them to understand you. Whereas you take someone who uses book learning, which is what I normally do, it will be way harder to interact in a similar setting, even though you might know way more about the grammar and other, more technical structures. Now, I was thinking of another example of all of this, which is when we learn language in the bookish way. We see these sounds, and we might do like then the morphonon, monotone, charaktera mas, or something like that, using the English equivalent of all these sounds, because a usual introductory textbook would say, oh, this is pronounced like the English word then. But if I say this like then I'll have that little diphthong sound instead of then, which won't have the diphthong sound. Or or the amorphonon. Also, phonone, because we don't have o or u in American English. We have o and u. So if you learn this is like fo, and this is u, then you get it all wrong. You get an equivalent. A modern Greek speaker who's patient will follow and understand, and saying, but the vowel is not in the right place. It's using these little diphthong things we do in English. And I was thinking was Taylor Swift, because Irene, my fiance, loves Taylor Swift, loves listening to her songs, so I get to hear them also sometimes. And when hearing them, say when we ride in the car, I notice some characteristics in her pronunciation, specifically right here at the chorus of this song. What I noticed in particular there was a phenomenon that's true in a lot of dialects of English, which is that the oo vowel is what it used to be, and is seldom in most dialects. This oo vowel has, of course, become in a lot of places, such as in the word good. So it's good. But what I normally say in American, my accent of American English is good, good. There's a diphthong, and a lot of this happens a lot. Good, and while the first part is it then it's a rounded vowel, but then it becomes unrounded. Good, good. Now, what will happen eventually and inevitably is the exact same thing which happened with the rounded U vowel of medieval Greek, which unrounded to E. Just like, so like U, I don't know, U Atheneu, U Atheneu becomes U E Athenei in, say, the modern Greek. That U gets unrounded. So Taylor Swift here, when she says, when she sings, good, and the way, so good, it's very like she's like there's almost no rounding at all. Good, good. It's becoming centralized and fronted, which is where it ends in my diphthong, and now it's just skipping the first part. Very common evolution in a lot of languages when they change their sounds around. And anyway, so she is doing that in this song. I'm not actually, I don't know if I heard. I Taylor Swift. I like her fine, but I'm not like a fan or anything. So I don't know if I've ever heard her speak before. I assume she has an accent similar to mine. So maybe her singing is an affectation, or maybe because I think she's younger than I am, right? Yeah, by at least 10 years, right? So it's because of that, she may speak in a form of American English, which is more developed by a whole decade, right? The slight changes. But in any case, she's singing it that way. And when someone who really is a fan of Taylor Swift is going to try to sing this song, even if they're a foreigner, and this is interesting because foreigners tend to do this really well, when they hear a song, especially if they don't know the language, they'll get a lot of these vowels and these sounds perfect because they won't have a precondition of, oh, I need to make this vowel this way or that way because I learned it that way in a book or from a teacher. They won't be imitating the singer. They'll be using a kind of algorithm in their head to produce language. Nothing wrong with that. But if that's not calibrated right, then they'll just sound foreign. So she says, no, not the first part of the chord, because I know it's better. Why does it feel so good? Good. So like that. So good. And that kind of thing with that vowel sound, where if you're singing it, and it's big, Swifty fan, you're gonna try to sound like her, especially if you have a woman's voice. You'll be imitating that with great precision. That's shadowing. Shadowing is trying to imitate every phrase in its sound as you would try to imitate a song that you love with perfect precision, just like the original singer, with all the interesting characteristics of their speech, their accent, and obviously the melody and intonation is already programmed. That's what's exciting often for people in a song, right, is the intonation, the music of it. So here but this is often ignored in language acquisition.
Αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας.
Proμένο μας. Proμένο μας. That's a lovely little phrase. Αλλά και το προμένο μας. 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 And I want to so I hopefully I haven't heard this recording yet, obviously, because I'm making it now. But αλλά το προμένο μας.
Αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας. Καθοδηγούμενο.
Oh, and he slows down a little bit there.
Αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας.
Αλλά και το προπένο. Αλλά και το προπέ. I'm messing up now because I'm trying to read it. Προπωμένο μας. Αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας. Προπωμένο μας. And then, see, when I read it, my ancient Greek brain is telling me, hey, that's a long omega and a short e, but really the rhythm is switched there, where the epsilon is the long duration one. Anyway, it gives you an idea of what we're after, right?
Αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας. Καθοδηγούμενες.
When I don't look at the text, I'm able to nail it. So or I think I nailed it, to get closer anyway. And that is extremely, extremely helpful, because if you, with shadowing, with, how much audio is this? I actually haven't calculated it. Let's take a look, because I'm curious, and what the heck is. I'm done watching, but I like the program. So we want to calculate this here. So 19 and a half, 11 and a half. Let me just put a little new add row above. So 19.5, 11.5. So 19.5 minutes. 18.5 approximately, right? Because it's 18.6, but whatever. 11.5, 24. 11.5, 24 minutes for 6. 13.5, 13.5, and then 14.75, I'll say. And 13.4, 13.4, as I get that right, and 13. Okay, so this is what they call this, a back of the envelope calculation. But so let's make this the total of these minutes, and it's 159 minutes. So, and 2 hours and 20 minutes about, right? Did I get that right? Because if 100 minutes, yeah. Wait, no, 40 minutes. 100, yeah, 60 minutes, yeah. So that's, that's a good, it's more than 2 hours of audio, right? That's good. And wait, hold on, just because I'm this lazy, and I'm public math and all. Yeah, 2.5 hours about. So 2 hours 40 minutes approximately. Okay, that's about what I said. That is how long all this lasts. So that's a good amount of audio. And I've also what you're doing with the shadowing is you're going through every one of these videos. The first time you're just doing blind shadowing, just doing the sound of it. And that's helpful to get into the sound and the intonation. Now you're going to try your best never to lose the accuracy of your skill in getting the intonation down. So you can say
αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας.
αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας. Αλλά και το πεπρωμένο μας. You want to try to be able to nail the audio, the sound of that, the intonation every time. Never ever sacrifice that. But then you incorporate the next step, which is while you read the translation and do the same thing.
Καθοδηγούμενες από τη διαχρονική σοφία της στοικής φιλοσοφίας. Σε αυτό το
So there you saw too, because I understood what I was saying. I paused because I was like, I heard ti stoikis philosopias, and I was trying to say ti stoikis philosopias, but then my brain realized, oh, this is genitive, tis stoikis philosopias. So I went and I internally corrected to try to add an extra sigma in there, which you wouldn't hear anyway. Tis stoikis philosopias. So it shows you how this process works, and then you're always trying to maintain a good sound. Try to sound as much like the target, which is this guy, real or not, as much as you possibly can. And then if you go, so that's the step 2, and I've almost finished the step 2 for all of them. But as you can see, this is why I made a chart. You don't necessarily do every single chapter with the blind shadowing, then every single chapter. Actually, I did do that first. I did every single chapter blind shadowing because I really wanted to just get the sound, be able to make myself get the oral pasture, be able to say shaftoto video. How's that sound?
Σε αυτό το βίντεο
One of the things you get in this are just like that good, that really unrounded good that Taylor Swift is doing. You also get here characteristics of the pronunciation that the spelling wouldn't necessarily indicate to you, like retracted S. Modern Greek has an apical or retracted S sound. It sounds further back. It sounds closer to sh in sometimes than it does to English s, or Italian s, which for most dialects of English and Italian are much more fronted, whereas the sh of Greek is more retracted. So shaftoto video. So you hear the sh sound, which is an important feature of ancient Greek as well as Latin. It's an important feature of modern Castilian Spanish. Anyway, so these are things that if you're imitating it, and that's where your concentration is on imitating the sound through shadowing, then you'll nail this. You'll get it, and then you'll always have that to depend on. Whereas if you do the book learning first, you'll end up essentially learning the sounds wrong because you equate them with your native language sounds, And for example, so από τη στοική φιλοσοφία is this phrase here. Από τη στοική φιλοσοφία. Now, a Brit, most Brits, instead of saying E, which I actually as an American English speaker say E, I have a slight diphthong, but Brits have a more pronounced A sounding diphthong for the E vowel. So they might say, από τη στοική philosophia. I'm trying to do a ridiculous exaggeration, but E. Now, if they're doing that, instead of imitating exactly this,
από τη στοική φιλοσοφία,
από τη στοική φιλοσοφία, it helps to really get past all of that phonetical limitation, the phonotactic limitations that we have from our native languages. Okay, so that's the second is to, after I did the blind shadowing for all of them, then I started doing them in these bracketed ways. So I did shadowing by reading the translation, and then the next, which is what you see here, the next is thumb reading. What is that? When you have one of those books that have, say, English on as a translation on the right, and then the target language on the left. I'm not talking to you, Siri. When you have that, you'll be able to, you have the English text there as you're walking around, because that's the idea. When you have these, say, the Asimil books, you're listening to the audio, and then you have the book, and you're walking around with it. So when you do the blind, or when you do the reading of the translation, you're just reading the text as you're walking around with your book. You're not looking at the target language. But then with the thumb reading, you start to keep your thumbs on each side. So as you're walking around doing that, and hopefully not running into anything, the book on your nose like Ichabod Crane, you're keeping tracks. You're going back and forth. You're mostly looking at the English translation, or the working language translation, English in my case, because that's where I would hopefully get it, because I know that language. You're mostly looking at the English, and you're glancing over at where your other thumb is as you're going down line by line at the modern Greek. But with this, on the phone, it's way easier to do this, because instead of having to jump around as much, it's right there. So in this stage 3, thumb reading level 1, I'm mostly looking at the English, but occasionally glancing up at what could be a very funny alphabet. Obviously, I know the ancient Greek and modern Greek alphabet and pronunciation just fine, but I'm going to only glance at it occasionally, trying to stick with this, because in a way I'm learning the subject of the video. I'm learning what this audio recording is talking about, in this case, stoiki philosophia, Stoic philosophy. So I'm able to, the point is to not lose the thread. You're supposed to be understanding and following. Once you start with level 2, you should be understanding everything you're saying. Maybe not perfectly, because you're mostly trying to imitate sound. That is what you're doing. That is the core of what you're doing in shadowing. You never stop trying to get a perfect imitation of the pronunciation. Always try to make that better every single time. But you're also starting to now build into then understanding what you're saying. And then in thumb reading level 1, you're glancing up a little bit to just start to sneak up on the target language text.
που υπόσχονται να βελτιώσουν την καθημερινότητά σας, ενώ ταυτόχρονα θα καλλιεργήσουν την ανθεκτικότητα, την αρετή και την ολοκλήρωση. Αυτό δεν είναι απλώς συμβουλές αυτοβοήθειας. Είναι μια αλλαγή στον τρόπο που σκέφτεστε, ενεργείτε και ζείτε. Είτε είστε μακροχρόνιος μαθητής φιλοσοφίας, είτε μόλις αρχίζετε να εξετάζετε νέες προοπτικές.
Very challenging to do. Again, super challenging because I don't have the audio right here in my ears. So it's a little bit more delayed and awkward sounding than it would be if I were doing this with headphones, obviously. But you should be getting the idea. I'll just do a little bit more of thumb reading level 2. Again, mostly looking at the translation here in the English and glancing occasionally up at the Greek text.
Υπάρχει κάτι εδώ για εσάς. Αν βρείτε αξία σε αυτό το βίντεο, εγγραφείτε στο κανάλι, πατήστε το κουμπί του like και μοιραστείτε το με άλλους που βρίσκονται σε παρόμοια πορεία προσωπικής ανάπτυξης και φιλοσοφικής εξερεύνησης. Οι ιδέες που εξερευνούμε σήμερα ίσως αμφισβητήσουν κάποιες από τις πεποιθήσεις σας. Γι' αυτό σας προτρέπω να παρακολουθήσετε μέχρι το τέλος και να εμπλακείτε πλήρως.
Anyway, so I'm starting to now, so I have, from the first level, I've gotten close, a basic level of, I'll call it mastery, but it's very basic, of intonational contour, sounds and phonetics, but very, introductory, but I would say that's, you're there once you've done 2.5 hours or equivalent. There are other series on Lingopie. I just, I chose this one for the reasons I mentioned. Also, I'm interested in Stoic philosophy, so, maybe I'll learn something. I'll certainly learn a lot of vocabulary related to philosophy and the advice related to, that Stoic philosophers give. So that's useful. Anyway, so I get that sound system first, and then I'm starting to understand the topic. So I'm starting to associate the sounds I already know how to make with meanings. It's a little bit like how a baby learns a language, but not exactly. But it's still very useful. Then with the thumb reading, I'm starting to associate. Start with basic sound. So let's say that's good. Now then I build on top of that with the second stage here, an idea of of what all it means. And now I'm starting to take go sound, then meaning, and now text, the actual spellings of words in the target language, which helps to isolate words, because I might have thought that things were made up of two words if I were trying, thinking about it consciously, because I hear sounds and I may have no idea if I'm really coming in cold, which I'm not, because I know ancient Greek and a bit of modern Greek. If I were really coming in cold, I might not know that "ge" is its own separate word. I might think it's a prefix or something, because it has a prefix-like nature acoustically. Anyway, that kind of thing. If I even knew what "ge" meant, but that's what you start to get from level 3. The second thumb reading is where you still have both languages available, and you're not. You're mostly looking at the target language. So now I'll do that.
Ας ξεκινήσουμε αυτό το ταξίδι μαζί αμφισβητώντας τις απόψεις μας και αναπτυσσόμενοι ένα βήμα τη φορά. Αυτό δεν είναι απλώς ένα σύνθημα καλής διάθεσης. Είναι μια πρακτική ριζωμένη στην αρχαία φιλοσοφία της στοικής σχολής. Οι στοικοί διδάσκουν ότι ενώ δεν μπορούμε να ελέγξουμε τα εξωτερικά γεγονότα, μπορούμε να ελέγξουμε το πώς αντιδρούμε. Η θετική στάση δεν είναι να αγνοούμε τις δυσκολίες της ζωής ή να προσποιούμαστε ένα χαμόγελο.
Now, something I noticed with this is, since with the thumb reading, with a traditional book, you're jumping back and forth, and it's challenging but worthwhile. Here, since they're right next to each other, if I simply look at the Greek, since of course English just jumps out to me, and this is very clear text and everything, on the phone too, very easy to read, very clear. On the mobile device, I can really keep my eyes almost entirely on the Greek, but I'm still, out of the corner of my eye, seeing, reading, and understanding a lot of the English while I'm doing this. Now, as I'm just starting here, I'm stopping, I'm starting, because I'm interrupting to explain the process. What I'm doing is I'm slowing down my ability, but once you get in the rhythm of doing this, after like 3, 4, 5 minutes, you get into this, it's like you're in a rhythm, you're in a zone. It's not like athletics. You try to, you start to work out or whatever your activity you're doing, and it's a little like, okay, you're warming up, but eventually you get there and you get into the rhythm. So you'll really feel that with all the shadowing steps. There's a lot of, okay, let me get used to this, but then you will see the results. I mean, it's like training for a marathon. This is great stuff. It's not that hard though. So that's thumb reading level 2. Next, and I haven't done any of that yet here because I wanted to, I don't know, I just wanted to fill out more of these, is your shadow reading only the target language. Again, now what's interesting here, do you ever pause during those recordings? You are not supposed to. That is not the purpose. Your purpose is to get to the point where you can very fluidly say everything you hear at the same time that you're hearing it. Will you be perfect? No. Will you be good? Probably not. Like good, like would it come out, and if it were just the recording, if you had like a recording of your own voice hearing it, it probably sound very much like modern Greek, but you would have, a word missing here, syllable drop, that kind of stuff, even if you're doing this for a while. But that's not the point. The point is that you get such a good sense of the rhythm and phonology and the contours of the speech that you're building on top of it all the other stuff when it comes to the words, the meanings, and the like. So with this stage where you're just reading the target, now again, if you're carrying the book, you could glance over the English if you wanted to, but in this step, you're not supposed to anymore. And you would have seen, say, this video 4 times already. So this would be time number 5. And then I would only be looking at the Greek here and being able to use it as a cue to help me nail the words that I'm speaking.
Να καλλιεργούμε την ανθεκτικότητα για να διαχειριζόμαστε τις χαρές και τις δυσκολίες της ζωής με σοφία. Πώς μπορούμε να χτίσουμε αυτή την νοοτροπία καθημερινά? Δεν είναι αυτό που σου συμβαίνει, αλλά πώς αντιδράς σε αυτό που έχει σημασία. Αυτό σημαίνει να βλέπουμε τα εμπόδια ως ευκαιρίες για μάθηση, όχι ως φραγμούς. Κάθε πρόκληση είναι μια ευκαιρία να εξασκήσουμε αρετές όπως η υπομονή, το θάρρος και η επιμονή. Για παράδειγμα, αν αντιμετωπίζετε μια αποτυχία στη δουλειά, αντί να αφεθείτε στην απογοήτευση, ρωτήστε «Τι μπορώ να μάθω από αυτό?» Μετατοπίζοντας την προσοχή σας από το πρόβλημα στην πρόοδο, δεν λύνετε μόνο ένα θέμα, ενισχύετε τον χαρακτήρα σας.
So that is the step called shadow reading target. So you're just reading the target and you're not taking advantage of the English anymore. Would you understand every word if you read it slowly? Probably not. Right now what you're doing is, since you have a sense of what the text means, you're probably not going to remember every word for maybe very little, especially if this is a totally new language for you. But the advantage is that you will be able to say these words probably pretty well, especially if you're listening to them at the same time. So, you're learning how to say this. Tin, ev, gno, mo, si, ni. So you're able to sound stuff out probably at this point. Ev, moshini, no moshini, Gnomoshini, evgnomoshini, 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 ketin, evgnomoshini. Not great, but, not great, not terrible.
Και την ευγνωμοσύνη.
Ketin evgnomoshini, ketin evgnomoshini, ketin evgnomoshini. It's interesting, too, trying to say this at this normal pace of speech, challenging. It's hard to do, but that's the idea. That's how this really speeds up your learning.
Και την ευγνωμοσύνη.
Ketin evgnomoshini, ketin evgnomoshini. So you need to practice that one, but as many others. But you're getting to that point. Then you're supposed to start thinking in the target language. Since now, because of the text I'm using, which isn't super conversational, it may, when you think about Stoic philosophy during the day, it may not be that often, but once in a while, something might come back to you. You want to start being able to think in the language. I'm not at that step yet, but I can think in ancient Greek very, very fluently. So I can actually skill transfer that back into modern Greek without too much trouble when it comes to certain basic things. But when it comes to philosophia, μπορώ να μιλήσω? I have to check for that. Anyway, I'm not sure what I can do. But anyway, bori, different little things you'll be able to start doing. But I'm not there yet anyway. I need to do a little bit more than half of basically I'm not even halfway through the point where I'm supposed to start thinking in the language. But I can feel it already happening. This is very amorphous, though. There isn't something specifically task-oriented that you can do. You might be able to start writing some ideas or rephrasing them and try to think about it, but there's no real you have to do this before you move on. So it's not there's not a task here. It's just hey, start to think of the target. Okay. Start to try to use it actively in your own thoughts. Then the textual analysis comes in, and you can see here I've already done this for all of video number 1. And now how can I do that, and how do I do that with Lingopie? Well, that's with the dual translation. I have the text, and anytime I get to a word I might not know, I can add it.
Είναι ευγνωμοσύνη.
Την evgnomoshini. Isn't it cool to have va and ra and then na right next to each other? Evgnomoshini. Tin evgnomoshini. What a beautiful language. I love the sound of modern Greek. And that's and it's challenging and it's fun. Την ευγνωμοσύνη, και την ευγνωμοσύνη, και την ευγνωμοσύνη, και την ευγνωμοσύνη. Being able to get automaticity is a result of this. It's something worth practicing. So how do I analyze it? Well, I can go through, and then I just sort of watch it. I don't try to recite it at the same time. I'm trying to understand it in all sorts of different ways at the same time.
Η αναγνώριση του καλού
Η αναγνώριση του καλού. So if I see that phrase, since I know ancient Greek, tu kalu is identical in meaning and pronunciation. So that's, and the pronunciation is pretty close. It's the pitch accent's a little different, but it's very, very similar. And so anagnorisis, anagnorisis is the ancient word. So anagnorisi is recognition, the recognition. So I'm learning things. If I didn't know what the article was, I learned that I and tu are articles, and that tu means of the, that there's a genitive, a possessive component in this phrase. So we see the recognition of the good, but phrased idiomatically in English, recognizing what is good. So that's helpful too.
όσο μικρό κι αν είναι.
Όσο μικρό κι αν είναι. And this is interesting to see the key here. It means and, does it? Oh, and I might have been new to this concept that και can be simplified to ki. Κι αν είναι. Κι αν είναι. Όσο μικρό κι αν είναι. Lovely, isn't it? Let's hear that again.
Όσο μικρό κι αν είναι.
Όσο μικρό κι αν είναι. Μπορεί να είναι μεταμορφωτική.
Μπορεί να είναι μεταμορφωτική.
Μπορώ να είναι μεταμορφωτική. Μπορώ να είναι μεταμορφωτική. So, μπορεί να είναι μεταμορφωτική. So I'm learning things. So μπορεί can mean it can. Of course, I did already know that, but I could be learning that. Na είναι means to be. I might eventually pick up, just from doing, 20 minutes of this one video, I might pick up, there doesn't seem to be a specific infinitive synthetic word, as there's in, say, ancient Greek. So, and I might be confused if I'm coming from ancient Greek, because in ancient Greek means to be, whereas ine in modern Greek means he or she is, or it is, or they are. It's a finite verb. There is no infinitive synthetic construction or form of the verb in modern Greek. There are no infinitives. There's naine, na, which is from hina, in order that. And then you just put the verb in the person that makes sense for the person that you're describing. So if we're speaking of something, how small it is, we're talking about something abstract, whatever it is. However small it is, it, whatever that it is, can be constructive. So third person singular, bori na ine. It can, that it is, or that it be, if you wish, but it's a finite verb. Bori na ine metamorphotiki. So I'm learning these things about the grammar.
Ξεκινήστε κάθε μέρα αναλογίζοντας.
I learned this word. So this word is from Byzantine. It's where there's some syncope going on here, where some of the vowels are cut out. But it doesn't look like the word for begin in ancient Greek. But I would then surely learn this, right? So
Ξεκινήστε.
Ξεκινήστε. So start. Y'all, you plural, start. Καθημέρα. So I'm picking
Κάθε μέρα.
So, sorry, κάθε μέρα. Αναλογιζόμενοι κάτι, and kati I'm learning is something. So I'm learning all these different terms. I'm learning a ton of vocabulary, just kind of looking at it. And every time I see a word I don't know, let's say kati I don't know, I go here and just add it. Come on.
Κάτι.
Clicking on it does that. Bidi-beam. And I can hear it again.
Κάτι.
It tells me it's pronoun, neuter, singular, third person, singular. Great. So I'm learning all these things. I can get super analytical as much as I want. Now, what I'm really doing, though, as I go through, is especially building vocabulary. Grammar is one of the last things one should probably concentrate on in language acquisition. It's very fun for those who like grammar. It can be very useful, but really sound first. Nail pronunciation. Lingopie obviously does this, especially with shadowing. It's fantastic. You can nail all this. Then, when you get this analytical phase, you're after pronunciation. You're after vocabulary before grammar. You'll
Σχεδιασμός.
Now, what it does is it ends up creating, see, we spaced repetition, right? So we have these are words that I've put into the system. And so σχεδιασμός, let's see if I can recall this. Σχεδιασμός. So this is, so I remember knowing in the reflex in ancient Greek, which is about coming up with something. I think design, maybe? Let's find out. I was right. Okay.
Μυϊκή.
Miki. Miki. So Miki, muscle from mus in ancient Greek, which means mouse. So, and mues, therefore, little mice, are muscles, just like Latin musculus, little mouse for muscle. So that's easy to figure out.
Δεν αφορά.
Δεν αφορά. Δεν αφορά is an idiomatic expression, which I remember seeing several times in these videos. And it means so αφορά is regarding. It's an adverb. So δεν αφορά, not concerned with, not regarding.
Σωστής.
Sostis, so that is right or correct, because it's from the word sostos, which means right or correct in modern Greek, but it's from the ancient Greek word for safe, like Socrates, safe strength.
Ευθυγραμμίζοντας.
Safe power. Ευθυγραμμίζοντας. Eutu in Greek is straight. In ancient Greek is straight, so I would say this means a line. So straightening lines together.
Έγκυται.
Engite. Engite. The rises. Nope. I was wrong. It arises. Okay. I should have.
Νοοτροπία.
Nootropia. So that's nous is mind in ancient Greek. So mentality, the turning of the mind. It's easy to figure out.
Αισιοδοξία.
Αυτή η αλλαγή δεν είναι μόνο αισιοδοξία.
And this is actually, for some reason it wasn't doing it. This is the first time it's not done it. The interface is fantastic. Occasionally you might find tiny little bugs. I promise you, they're working on them. Lingopie is very, very good. Like 99% of the time, it's going to work perfectly. If you find little bugs, I mean, let them know if you want. But I mean, they're very easy to work with, and I wouldn't sweat it. It's a very complicated interface, so I'm glad it works as well as it does, which is tremendously well. What it did here is when I got to this word, it played the audio and it showed the scene in could have been a movie or something else, but in this particular video where that word is used, so I have more context, and I just heard him say.
Είναι μια συνειδητή.
I just heard him say, aesthedoxia. So, doxia, the seeming of things. Aesthedoxia. Exiodoxia. It's not genitive, so I'm going to go with, nope, not that. Is it? No, it must be. It's optimism.
Μια συνειδητή.
Interesting. I don't know why aesthedoxia means optimism. So then what I could do is look at the etymology in Wiktionary and figure out what ancient Greek it relates to that I might already know. Or if it doesn't, then I would just, pick it up from there, figure out the roots. That's how I build my own vocabulary. But you don't have to be such a, etymology nerd like me. You could just pick up the word and get the spaced repetition and learn it that way. So nya is a something, and sin iditi, so sin iditi with, and then knowing. So this has got to be a conscious, right? Okay. And so there we go. So I could do another quiz, or I could keep watching. But it gives you an idea, and there are other vocabulary builder quiz things that are little game things that Lingopie has, and they're very, very effective for this. So that's what I've been doing, and I love it. I love using Lingopie this way with the shadowing technique. And how many hours is this? So I've done 4 or 5 hours of listening and repeating and reciting of modern Greek. It's not a ton, but I've noticed huge improvement. Now, one of the things I've really noticed, especially so I did textual analysis. I kind of skipped some steps just because I wanted to try it out and see, would this really work for textual analysis? And it does. The textual analysis step is, if you were to have the Asimil book or equivalent, is you'll be kind of picking up the grammar, maybe reading the grammar notes and other things, but you'll be trying to learn rather than acquire. You'd be trying to understand characteristics. You might notice little subtleties like about in this pronunciation and spelling.
Μία.
So this is giving mia, but when you say this quickly, it's inamnya. When it's unstressed, inamnya becomes mna, mnya.
Επανεκτίμηση των εμποδίων
Let's go back to
ως
that.
ευκαιρίες για... Είναι μια συνειδητή επανεκτίμηση των εμποδίων.
Inamnya. So that, and I don't know in which situations it should be nya or mia. That's something subtle I can learn that is grammatical. It's connected with the phonology. I might be learning about the genitive, to empodion. But something else I also learn here is a ton of ancient Greek vocabulary that I kind of maybe knew or didn't know yet, but was primed to learn, and I hadn't maybe seen in my ancient Greek texts that I've observed. So, like say empodion, ebodion, which in ancient Greek pronunciation, the same word, empodion, right? So
Των εμποδίων.
embodion or ebodion. I didn't need to learn this word because I'd seen this before. This is a great word because I think this one specifically, if I had seen it in ancient Greek, I hadn't remembered it. But I looked it up, make sure, wait, is this really an ancient Greek word? And I would go to the Logion website, and I would discover that absolutely it is a word. It's a fantastic word. And it's so empodion, an obstacle, something that gets in your way. I think I remember empodistin, the verb, but I don't know if I'd seen empodion before for the noun. And that's just a word. The obstacle is a word that one likes to use in conversational speech, and now I have it, and now I can use it. So this is an ancillary effect. If you're learning, because again, I know you out there watching this channel, Plymouth Plus, you may be interested in ancient Greek or Latin, like I am especially, but you're open to what modern languages can do to assist in that. Here's another word, to tharos.
Το θάρρος.
You see, I've already brought that word into the vocabulary builder.
Η υπομονή και το θάρρος. Για παράδειγμα,
now, I know the verb. I think when I saw this, I don't think I had seen. I think I'd seen to tarsos, but not to tarsos. Tarsos, I think I maybe seen a Thucydides a couple of times, but not tarsos, which is the typical Attic spelling. But obviously exists because it's been borrowed from Attic, probably through Katharevousa into modern Greek. So to tharos is this modern Greek word, and therefore to tarsos is this beautiful Attic word that now I have learned, which I'm able to connect with the verb tarri. Be of good cheer. Be tough. Have courage. Have heart. Take heart. That sounds better. So, and tarrin. I would be able to just basically I'm building vocabulary in ancient Greek because I'm seeing a whole bunch of words that are very useful that then I can go and confirm actually exist in ancient Greek texts and go like with the TLG or other resources, make sure they really are there. And anyway, it's just tremendously useful also as to build ancient Greek. And the same thing can be said for learning Spanish or Italian at some stage when learning Latin. Generally, I would say be careful learning languages at the same time because unless you have a lot of free time, if you're trying to learn multiple languages at the same time, and you just never won't go as fast if you're only in either language than if you were to study just one of them. Like I knew Italian fluently before I started studying Latin. I knew ancient Greek fluently before I started studying modern Greek in earnest, which is what I've been doing now. I call this more earnest. Before it was never really earnest, although I had superficial introductions before this. So I have a lot more work to do. The next steps in shadowing, after shadowing reading only the target text and the textual analysis of each one, that'll be a breakthrough because then I'll learn all this vocabulary and going back to Lingopie every day with the flashcards, I can take a quiz anytime. Engite, right? That arises? Yeah, those arises. Engite.
Αισιοδοξία.
Αυτή η αλλαγή δεν είναι μόνο αισιοδοξία. Είναι μια συνειδητή επανεκτίμηση.
Επανεκτίμηση. It's a noun. I'd say reassessment. Yep.
Ανάπτυξη.
So then, after the idea is then to go back and and go through these videos and watch them again with Lingopie. It makes it really nice to have that passive experience. The active thing to do after textual analysis is to recite aloud the text. So how would
των
I
εμποδίων
do that?
ως
If I pause the
ευκαιρίες για
video
ανάπτυξη
and
αρετών
hey,
όπως
look, I have the whole thing. I might go through and recite the loud with no audio. I think that's the idea here, is that you recite through it with no reference to the audio. But I have the whole script, so I can say, κάθε στιγμή της ζωής μας διαμορφώνεται από τις αποφάσεις που, που καθορίζουν την πορεία μας. Και είναι αυτές οι επιλογές, όσο μικρές κι αν φαίνονται, που υφαίνουν το πολύπλοκο. That's another great word that's in ancient Greek too, πολύπλοκος. Το πολύπλοκο υφαντό της ζωής μας. Της ζωής μας. You get that a lot, right? Της ζωής μας. Της ζωής μας. Wonderful to get all these phrases. And as I'm saying them, I'm trying to remember how this guy's voice sounds, whether he's an AI voice or not, and trying to imitate it. You know, like υφαντό της ζωής μας, υφαντό της ζωής μας, and trying to get the oral posture, get it up in my cheekbones, which is where I feel the language. Υφαντό της ζωής μας, υφαντό της ζωής, let me hear how he says it, so I do it right.
που υφαίνουν το πολύπλοκο υφαντό της ζωής μας.
υφαντό της ζωής μας, υφαντό της ζωής μας. So when you were reciting aloud, if you were doing it in the normal shadowing way, you wouldn't listen to the audio. Here, I could listen to each phrase and read it back. Or if I get to something that's a little bit harder, where I want to nail the intonation, where I didn't before, and then I listened to it, and then I got it. I got that it has a different kind of pitch contour the way he says it. Doesn't mean what I did was wrong. I don't know. But what he does is right. So if I can do what he does, I'll be sounding very good. And that's a great way to recite aloud. And then there's the scriptorium technique. There's my video about that over on Polymathy in the main channel, where you transcribe the text. So, and I'm gonna have the whole video about shadowing over on Polymathy, so you can see this in more detail. So I want to show you what I'm doing to learn modern Greek. It's enormous benefits to my ancient Greek studies. I think I will be able to use this with time, especially over many months. I will be able to make my ancient Greek sound more like, well, certainly this guy, and more like the intonational patterns, the oral posture, some characteristics of articulation that are possible in ancient Greek, or are entirely shared potentially between modern and ancient Greek. I want to sound something like Ioannis Stratakis, not exactly, but I want to sound like with my own voice, as if I were, while I'm learning modern Greek, which is exciting to me too, in of itself. I'm be applying that to ancient Greek phonetically, and I can hear a difference when I speak. I can hear that it's sounding slightly more like this now. I'm sure it'll take a long time to get anywhere near where I want to go. But it's been a really fantastic time and experience. I hope you found this interesting. And I'll put a link to Lingopie down below if you're interested. As as a product, obviously I love it. I'm using it, if not every day, certainly every week, and a lot, in several hours, because it's very, very useful and exciting what I can do with it using something like the shadowing technique. But I'm sure you could find other stuff out there that'll do similar things. But it's interesting how you have something that works really well, something like Asimil, and then you have Alexander Guias uses it in a different way that it wasn't intended with the shadowing technique. And now I'm using Lingopie, again, not really how it was intended. It wasn't intended necessarily for shadowing, it was more for comprehensible input. But then if you actually do this production, because production is so useful to getting language mastery and reading mastery, but that's another topic. If you get this, if you go using shadowing with Lingopie is way, way easier. I wanted to show what it looks like on the actual app. just briefly, but it's at least as useful as it is right here. Okay, let me get to Stoic Insights and continue watching. Okay, so let's see, play. Okay, so you can see that you can have both translations. You have the scripts below, and you can turn off if you're just doing like the translation shadowing step. Then you can get just the there you go. You just the English, and the audio quality is of course excellent on with if you have headphones and the phone itself. So it works really really well. You get all of the same features in the interface that we saw here, and yeah. Anyway, I love it. I wanted to have this so that people can see in the excruciating detail that is in this video how one can apply all these techniques. And anyway, thanks for watching. Ευχαριστώ. See ya.